the skeleton key, so to speak, to this broader analysis of Amalek drops in probably when we're not paying attention in Parshas Bolak, and it comes from the mouth of the pagan prophet Bilam, who provides, if you will, micro-prophecies about a number of different peoples. And what does Bilam have to say when he ponders Amalek? Vayar es Amalek. This actually is on your sheet if you're interested. It's like the third element. Vayar es Amalek, vayisam mishalo vayomar. He saw Amalek and was moved to offer a prophetic parable. Reishis goyim Amalek. Amalek is the first among nations. Now, of course, that's absurd if you're thinking in creation. Reishis, so Rashi quickly adds, Reishis goyim Amalek means the first to attack Israel after, because that's really the only thing they did first. You know, they're not exactly famous for anything else. The Achariso ade oved, but his destiny is to be destroyed himself. However, Achariso says, Rav Hutner, Achariso is a reference to and at the end of days. It doesn't just mean Amalek's eventual destiny. It means that in the end he will be destroyed. Why? Well, here we have a fascinating mechanism, and it's extremely important because for the first, maybe not for the first time in history, but with our relative safety, it is important to consider not only the category of anti-Semitism, but the Jewish attitude toward those who are not Jewish. The idea is that there are Jews who have no use and see no value in other. And I think, although certainly the tradition is filled with negative responses to what the nations of the world have done to us, I think it's important to recognize that ultimately we are an extremely optimistic people about those with whom we share the planet. So what Rav Hutner says is, Achariso, what is the end of days? Well, you heard the definition as Rashi discussed it, pulling it out of the prophets Zephaniah and Zechariah. The end of days is the day when every nation, no matter how they have gone astray, no matter what they have done or thought, that for all of them there is repair. The concept of tikkun. In the Acharis Hayomim, there is tikkun for every people, every member of the human family, no matter how misguided, with one exception. Achariso ade oved, the only irreparable nation is Amalek. Amalek is the only one that will actually have to be destroyed at the end of days. They have no place in a perfected world. So the question is, I'll ask you a wonderful question. What's so terrible about Amalek? I mean, you never heard anybody say, I won't buy an Amalekite car. Right? People have different nominees. If there is some nation in the world which is beyond redemption, so we've offered various candidates, but Hutner says that in this category, Amalek is unique. Why? So then we actually need to look into the rabbinic tradition. The rabbinic tradition which associates Amalek with a particular characteristic. And that tradition surfaces, although it is in many places. So for example, in the in the Yotzros, which were recited yesterday by all real Jews, the Yotzros, which were recited yesterday, one of the euphemisms which Hakalir uses to refer to Amalek is simply lates. A lates is one of those words. If you have to explain it, the person's not going to get it. It means a scoffer, scornful, cynical, all those kinds of things, right? But usually interesting, often with an element of humor. Because the pasuk in Proverbs says, you'll find me. See where it says Exodus Rabbah? The verse on which that Exodus Rabbah is based is Leitz Takeh Ufesi Yarim. The lates, you have to hit the lates. You hit the scorner, and the pesi, the one who is perhaps confused or foolish, Ya'arim, will then become clever. In other words, that Amalek's, striking Amalek itself has no value, because Amalek is irredeemable, as we said before. However, the reason we hit Amalek is so that those who observe will get the message. So I'll say a very good thing. You wouldn't believe it. So we just came from the Kriyas Yamsuf and the nations who observed it and were in the process of getting the message. Who ruins that transmission? What virus, another computer term, what virus enters the system? What was it, John? Tell me that thing again. Why did the fellow fail to download Megillas Esther on his computer? Tell him, Johnny.
Because it got an Achash virus.
Got an Achash virus. That's excellent. What are you talking about? If my wife was here, she'd be throwing furniture at you, but that's just because she doesn't like puns. To her, the notion of a good pun is oxymoronic. But I do appreciate them. So there you go. In any case, the Amalek enters history as a kind of a virus, the anti-Jewish virus. However, when Amalek is beaten, someone is paying attention. Who is paying attention? Well, Rashi is paying attention to the paying attention. Because at the end of Parshas Bishalach, where we feature Joshua's victory over Amalek under quasi-miraculous auspices, the next words we hear when we turn the page. See, the problem is Haftorahs. Because in our Chumoshim, the Haftorah is printed after the Parsha. We forget that the end of last week's Parsha is the Pasuk just before the first Pasuk of this week's Parsha. So after we dispatch Amalek for the first time, the next words we hear are Vayishma Yisro Kohen Midyan Chosei Moshe Eis Kol Asher Asa Elokim LeMoshe LiYisrael Amo. And Jethro heard. And that moved him to come to join the Jewish people. It moved him to come and move in with his son-in-law. You can imagine how thrilling that was. The Shver's on his way. Oh. So he came, but what did he hear? Rashi's language, the sage of the Rhine never lets us down. He is implosive in his wisdom. Ma shemua shoma ubo, asks Rashi on the first pasuk in Yisro, what did he hear that caused him to approach? Now remember, Yisro's approach is not only family reunion. Yisro's approach is a theological approach to the idea of Israel, a theological approach on his own to the values of Sinai. What did he hear? It says, Kriyas Yamsuf u'milchemes Amalek. He heard about Kriyas Yamsuf and the war against Amalek. What did he understand? He was was the first one to understand, the way Rashi reads this, that there is a dynamic, that the Kriyas Yamsuf had given the human family an opportunity. They were on the verge of taking it. What happens? Amalek gets in the way, and as we'll see, we'll review the famous Rashi that you have in the beginning of the sheet. Amalek cools the boiling bathtub, so to speak, and everyone says, maybe not. Maybe this Jewish people is not so special. Maybe their God is not all powerful. Everyone puts the deal on hold. And then Amalek is defeated, and war is declared on Amalek forever. This is not a one-battle war. War is declared on Amalek forever, and Yisro puts the pieces together. Yisro says, Amalek is the losing team. I need to be on the winning team. Whatever the idea that they represent is, it is the opposite idea with which I must affiliate. And this is Yisro, who has, according to tradition, examined every possible theology known to man and came to the conclusion that the Ribono Shel Olam is the one true God. Okay? So Yisro, in a sense, Yisro is the character in that verse in Proverbs, and that is exactly why in Shmos Rabbah it says, Leitz takeh ze Amalek. We smite the scoffer, that's Amalek. Ufesi Yarim, and the uninformed, the naive, becomes clever, ze Yisro. Right? So if you think about it, and this goes to your question, that why these two elements? There were so many different things that were happening in that point, right? That Yisro could have heard. Rashi selects very, very carefully, because he understands that Kriyas Yamsuf and the war against Amalek are related events. And the question of those two events demands a response. Now, this is where we focus on Amalek. Amalek, after all is said and done, what makes his bad worse than everyone else's bad? I mean, look at it. Look at the ancient world. We forgave everybody. We forgave Egypt, right? We're not holding anything on Babylonia. There's no decree that you should, wipe out the Persians. Although Netanyahu is trying to get that one rescinded. There's no specific grudge against Rome. In other words, all these people who have caused us, none of them has entered history as a theological target, except Amalek. Because of this notion of leitzonus, this notion of scoffing. And why is that? Because leitzonus, and here Rav Hutner is going to develop for us what we might call a kind of a moral psychology. It's extremely, extremely interesting. And for this moral psychology's terminology, he goes to a famous passage in the Sharei Tshuva, the Gates of Repentance of Rabbeinu Yonah. Maybe the most important single work devoted to repentance and to all of its working components. He takes us to the Sharei Tshuva. And in the Sharei Tshuva, he offers an interpretation of a verse from Proverbs. Interesting, the Rabbeinu Yonah wrote an entire book on Proverbs. and he doesn't have this interpretation attached to the verse. He saves it for his Sharei Tshuva. And the pasuk says, "Mitzaref kesef, mitzaref la kesef, v'kur lezahav." The place where you encounter these two elements in their purest form, in other words, where you smelt them down to the essence, is where silver is. What do you call the term that you do for silver? Smelted. Yeah. And where gold is what? Refined. Okay, good enough. And where do you encounter the essence of the human being? The ish lefi mahalalo. Now, often this is translated, a person by those who praise him. So as how do you know what a person is? Check the reputation. Says the Sharei Tshuva, that's not what the pasuk means. We have to reinterpret the words. Ish lefi mahalalo means you determine the essence of a person by what he praises or by what she values. And there, take a look at the beautiful words of the Sharei Tshuva. You find them on the back of the sheet. Malos ha'odam lefi ma sheyehalel. A person's essential character is borne out in that individual's choice of what to praise. Im hu mishabeach hamasim hatovim v'hachachamim v'hatzadikim. If this individual praises good deeds and favors wise people and righteous people, Teda u'vichinas ki ish tov hu v'shoresh hatzedek nimtza bo. You will then know that he is a person who is good, and the essence of, or the root of righteousness is in him. And as he will say it in a little bit later, on the fourth line, the last third. Maybe he hasn't been perfect. Maybe he has some hidden sins. But you know him to be someone who respects righteousness. You may be sure that he is a member of the tribe of those who honor God. However, if he is someone who praises ugly deeds and praises and lauds the wicked, who harasha hagamur v'hamechalel es avodas Hashem yisbarach, then he is evil. And Rav Hutner, in case you missed this sledgehammer over your head, Rav Hutner gives a very beautiful parable. He says two people in midlife. One of them has devoted his life to scholarship, to the study of Torah, and the other has devoted his life to business, to trade. Only when the scholar is approached by a rich man, he jumps up to attention and flatters him. When he sees another scholar, I also learned. The businessman, although he is completely unlettered, when he sees a person of learning, a person of righteousness, he responds to them with something like awe, with the deepest respect. The businessman for him is just another businessman. Says Rav Hutner as an interpretation of the Rabbeinu Yonah's principle, the theme mahalalo, judged by the standard of what they value in others. The scholar is a scoundrel, and the trader is a saint. Because you ever wonder why so many I don't know, my own excluded, of course. Why is it that so many rabbis' kids make a lot of money? Because it goes by the old joke. You ever hear this joke? I must have told you this once at least. The Frenchman who accosts the Swiss, and he says to him, "You Swiss people, you make me sick. You go to war for money. It is disgusting." And the Swiss says, "And what do you fight for?" I don't really know how to do a Swiss accent, so I had to make it a Yankee. And what do you fight for? We fight for honor. He says, "Good, you fight for what you're missing, and we fight for what we're missing." So, the Ish Lefi Mehalalo means the aspiration, what you value. That means Mehalalo means that there is an important mechanism which a human being possesses, and it represents one pole, and that is the capacity to revere, the capacity to, as in Hebrew we would say, to be machshiv, to revere some positive value. In order to do that, you have to, in a certain sense, pull back your ego. Because it means you have to be able to value even that which you might not yet yourself possess. To respect righteousness, to respect learning in others. That is ultimately the great positive building block of the world. The capacity to be mehalel, the capacity to revere, and to revere with aspiration. What is the opposite? The other pole, says Rav Hutner. The opposite pole is what we would call zilzul. That people, and this is the Machlas Medina of Lithuania. Lithuanian Jews were by, especially the great learned ones, they could be very caustic, dismissive, they could be cynical. That was called the koach habitul. If that tendency is allowed to entrench itself, it becomes an almost reflexive response to anything that is proposed as worthy of honor, worthy of reverence. So you all think this is so good? You all think that this is something? I'll show you its defect. More likely, I'll make a joke about it to show you that I don't have to take this seriously. Well, that capacity to put a pin in any balloon, that is leitzonus. That is the quality of the leitz. That is the quality of Amalek. To say kriyas yamsuf, kriyas yamsuf. You know the story about the little Jewish guy couldn't be impressed by anything? I must have told you this. Two little fellas, they sit on a bench in Miami Beach. Every day they talk. One guy, nothing impresses him. One day, the guy goes on a trip to Israel. 2 weeks later, his friends on the bench on Collins Avenue can't wait to see him. He says, "So Moshe, you were in Eretz Yisrael?" He says, "Yeah." "How was it?" "It's all right." "When you went to Eretz Yisrael, you went maybe to Yerushalayim?" He says, "What do you think, I'm crazy?" "Of course. I went to Yerushalayim." "When you were in Yerushalayim, you went maybe to Kaisel Maravi?" What do you think? I sit in the bus station? But I went the whole trip. I had to go. Of course, I went to the Koisel Marav with some Maishi. How was it? He says, there's a Koisel Maravi like all Koisel Maravis. Some people have the capacity, Kriyas Yamsuf, another like all Kriyas Yamsuf. And the Gemara even says, the Gemara in Sanhedrin has, if you will, the Shulchan Aruch of late summers. It tells you when is it appropriate to exercise this power of scorn, of zilzul, and he says the only mandated place for late sonus is late sonus against avodah zorah, against idolatry, against the core error that a human being can make. Why? Because this is a specialized category of late sonus. Normally speaking, late sonus, this scorn, the ability to make nothing out of anything, is a negative. It's a destructive impulse. However, the capacity to revere itself can be dangerous. You find people who are passionately convinced of foolishness. I mean, you name any Mishigas in the world. People who believe that Indianapolis is going to be put in a flying saucer and sailed off to Jupiter. But the people who believe that, among them, you have some frum ones. They really believe it. They put their money where their mouth is. They sold their house in Indianapolis. They're frum. They're frum, but they're wrong. So the power of chashivus, the power of reverence, can be misdirected. In other words, generally speaking, the capacity to revere is the foundation of all positive human elevation. Unfortunately, it's not sufficient, because it is a power which can be misdirected. And if you are passionately devoted to something which is absolutely wrong, then your passion is misplaced. What do? So we have a big syringe full of late sonus, and there we are allowed to use humor, cynicism, to disentangle you from avodah zarah, but it is not ultimately destructive. It is in the service of a higher chashivus. It is an ultimate reverence. It is because we revere something which is true, therefore we function destructively towards competing errors, untrue depositories of reverence. So where are we going with all this? There is another in the malignant variety of late sonus, of scorn. There is a particular danger. And this is expressed in the 9th parak of Mishlei, which I forgot to put on your sheet, so don't get excited. Al tochach leitz pen yisno eko. Don't bother giving reproof, tochocha, to a leitz. Is that word which we've associated with, because he'll only hate you for it. There's some people you can't tell them anything. There are people you can't tell them anything. Because if you confront them that maybe their given idea is not correct, they'll just hate you. However, hochach lechacham v'yehaveko. If you reprove a wise person, he will love you for it. Why? Because part of the definition of being a chacham is to be in search of refinement. is to embrace a challenge because perhaps you can do better. So now let's rewind the clock here. Amalek is associated with the quality of late sonus. The quality, not the one against idolatry, not one that is targeting falsehood, but one which is targeting the very concept of reverence. Reverence offends them. They have nothing to which they affiliate, but they don't want anyone else to affiliate either. They are offended by faithful reverence. And this quality of nature, this lack of capacity to revere anything, means that they have no use for what we call tochacha of rebuke. And here we have the very beautiful development in the Mesilas Yesharim. Another, if you have to talk about, if you only learn two of the great ethical texts in one shir, you get a little Shari Tshuva and a little Mesilas Yesharim, you are in the big leagues. Okay? Because he tells us in this paragraph, he gives a parable. Ki kamo hamagein hamashuach b'shemen, like a shield smeared with oil, with slick oil. Asher yashnit v'yapil me'olav hachitzim u'mashlichem lo'aretz, which will deflect all arrows and throw them to the ground. V'lo yaniach osam sheyagiu el guf ha'adam, and will not allow the human body to be pierced, which if you're talking on the field of battle is not a bad thing. But if you're talking in the spirit, it's a terrible thing. Kin halatzon mipnei hatocha v'hamartus. That is the function of this cynical attitude when it comes to responding to reproof. By reproof we mean someone telling you you could do it better, you could be better. It makes you immune to that process. For with just a little bit of cynicism and a small joke, Yapil ha'adam me'olav ribuy gadol min ha'hisorus v'hahispilus ma shehalev misorer u'mispa'el ba'atzmo midei re'oso o shomo inyanim. It means that with that little bit of cynicism, the person can encase his heart and make it immune to being moved, to being, as it were, amazed by some corrective idea. So now you'll figure out, you probably figured this out yourself. Amalek is the embodiment of this trait, which hates reverence of all kinds, incapable of reverence. Furthermore, which creates an immunity to anything that's corrective. You can't tell me anything. At the end of time, which we seem to be fast approaching. In the end of days, what is it that we said will happen to the nations of the world? There will be a tikkun. They will be repaired. They will be salvaged, healed. The ideas which have led them astray in both action and thought will be redirected. What's the mechanism? The mechanism is tochacha. They will be offered a challenging idea, And in the wake of that challenge, they will adjust. There will be one nation left that can't listen, that can't revere, by definition, that rejects the whole premise of Tochoch. And that nation, allowed to circulate in the families of man, will reinfect all of them with its leitzonus. It will, as it were, chill the boiling bathtub. You know how long it takes to bring the world to a boil? All eternity, all of history, to get the boil back. And that is why we say, V'achariso adei oved. The only way all of this can happen is if at the end, that element, that virus, so to speak, is removed so that the rest of humanity can be redeemed. Now for just a moment ponder. For just a moment ponder what this means. If you think in terms of physiology, if there is one, the doctors here can fill in the terminology. The body has remarkable powers of healing, has the capacity to respond to infections, to all sorts of things imposed from the outside. Even organic defects can sometimes be corrected, reformulated. That's what the whole science of neuroplasticity is about. But there are also certain elements in the body which attack the immune system, which attack the body's ability to wage war against the things which will kill it. Those enemies of our own immune system must be removed first, must be dealt with first. Because that is exactly what Rav Hutner, using these sources, is suggesting. That the body of the human race has the capacity to heal itself. How does it heal itself? It heals itself through the mechanism of reverence and the acceptance of tochacha. The acceptance of an appeal to a better way. But there is that implacable kernel which rejects tochacha, rejects the possibility that we could be better before it has a chance to even express itself. Which will make a joke out of any reverence because it is reverent. That element is the enemy, not just of the Jewish people. It is the enemy of the Jewish people. Because in a world which is infected with that, we will be isolated. We will even at times, as Chazal tell us, Rafu Yedeim Batorah, we won't throw the Torah away, but our hold on it will be weaker. Our own belief in what we stand for will tremble a little bit. But ultimately, we'll hold on. We'll just be very lonely. The real victims of Amalek are the ones who have been infected with his cynicism. I would just take the last moments to reflect upon the world in which we live. Unfortunately, certainly in the political and ideological world, the unwillingness to accept the possibility that maybe we're not 100% right is one which has been severely depressed. The two sides of the aisle, not only in Congress, but in our culture, each one just speaks to itself. Each one is just waiting for another high five in its own dugout to hear how right it really is. And it's interesting that this is, in a certain sense, the golden age of the sneer. The golden age of dismissing other ideas by making jokes out of them. And if you think that Amalek is the exclusive property of any party or ideology, then you're wrong. Amalek is alive in all the camps. And I won't give examples, because I don't want to make it sound like this is a partisan thing. This is not a partisan thing, this is a cultural thing. This is a culture which has ceased to respect reverence in favor of a kind of freewheeling cynicism and sneer and scorn culture. We celebrate Purim. In a certain sense, it is the only festival of the Jewish calendar where making fun of people is actually mandated. It is, so to speak, the playground where a little leitzonus is tolerated. Certainly vis-a-vis the enemies of the Jewish people, certainly vis-a-vis Haman and Zeresh. And what's very interesting is that even, you see in the Midrash has a comic quality. You know that story we all loved of Haman getting the family garbage dumped on him as he goes by leading the horse? Our sages weren't clowns. They were very, very precise. And the notion that against Amalek, even a little leitzonus is appropriate. But it's like the leitzonus that the Gemara described. It is scorn which we exercise in order to clear the way for reverence. That's why the great twinning of what in a certain sense are the holiest days of the year. We call Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippur and Purim have a parallel function. It is because on Purim, the recognition that we must tilt our lamps not at a particular ethnicity or a particular population or a particular ideology, but at this kernel of opposition, something which makes the world unsafe for reverence, something which makes the world unsafe for the person judged lefi mahalalo, according to that which he praises and therefore aspires to. And so our fight against Amalek is not that they have no value. This is not the festival of the ADL. This is not about dreaming of a world where no one hurts Jews. This is dreaming of a world where we share a dream for a better world. Wish you all a very, very happy Purim. Thanks a million for coming. It's always so wonderful to see you.